Hello everyone, so just a quick video to talk you through the differences between animal and plant cells and the different cell organelles, so there's different structures that we find within those cells. So I'm going to start off with the animal cell because it's perhaps the slightly more familiar one and it has slightly fewer organelles than a plant cell. The main sort of structures that you guys need to be able to recognise, label and describe the function of are the cell membrane, the ribosomes, the cytoplasm, the nucleus and the mitochondria. Okay, so I've kind of copied the picture that's in the revision guide. This is sort of a fairly standard representation of how we might draw an animal cell. Animal cells are less structured, they don't have as much of a fixed shape as plants. You'll see in a second we tend to draw plant cells slightly more square, slightly more box-like, whereas our animal cells we tend to kind of draw almost like a bit of a fried egg sort of shape. So the first thing to recognise is this outer edge in an animal cell, not in a plant cell, just in an animal cell, your outer edge all the way around is your cell membrane. And that forms the outer surface of the cells and it controls substances that go in or out. So depending on the type of substance you're looking at, it could either pass directly through that cell membrane by diffusion or it might need a little bit of help getting across that membrane. For GCSE level, it is absolutely appropriate just to know that the cell membrane helps to control what enters and what leaves the cells. Some example of materials that we want to enter the cell, things like oxygen, water, glucose are prime examples. Things you might want to leave your cell are typically going to be your waste products, so carbon dioxide, urea. So those are the types of things that your cell needs to be able to control, entering and leaving. We then come next down to the mitochondria. Okay, and as you guys know, this is a site of aerobic respiration. Remember, aerobic respiration is the one that uses oxygen and is the most efficient. Okay, a really common exam question is they might say, how many mitochondria might you expect a muscle cell to have? Or comment on the number of mitochondria of a muscle cell compared to a fat cell. All right, cells that need a lot of energy, typically those muscle cells for contraction, are going to have a lot of mitochondria in order to release that energy from that glucose. So if you've got a cell that's really active, heart cells for example, so muscle cells, as I said to you, you're going to have a high number of mitochondria in order just to meet the demand of their function. All right, every single cell will have mitochondria because every single cell needs to carry out respiration, but there can be differences in the numbers. Next structure, I've just drawn them as a little dot. These are your ribosomes, and this is where proteins are made. The example of a protein that you guys need to kind of have in mind is an enzyme. So if you've got, again, a similar type of question, could be comment on the number of ribosomes in two different types of cell. If you're talking about a cell that has to produce an enzyme, it's going to have a lot of ribosomes. Okay, so things in the sort of digestive system might have a lot of ribosomes to produce those digestive enzymes. All right, so keep in your head, anything that's making an enzyme, anything that's making a protein, high number of ribosomes. We then have our cytoplasm. So coming back to our idea of our fried egg, your cytoplasm is sort of the white bit in your fried egg. And it's just a gel-like substance where most of the cell's chemical reactions take place. Remember, anaerobic respiration happens in the cytoplasm. And it's going to have enzymes in it to help sort of control those reactions and get those reactions going. And then lastly, we have our nucleus. We typically draw it in the middle of the cell, and that's just how sort of drawing dictates the convention, but it doesn't have to necessarily be bang in the middle. But again, coming back to our fried egg analogy, our nucleus would be like our yellow yolk. And it contains the genetic material, which in animal cells is obviously DNA. Okay. Now there is a habit amongst students when they're talking about the function of the nucleus to say it's like the brain of the cell. That is not okay. It's not a brain. You're not going to get the marks for that. What students mean when they're talking about that is actually that it controls the cell's activity. So one function contains the genetic material, second function controls cells' activities. You have to write it as that. Do not let me read any exam answers from you guys that says it's the brain of the cell. And it's surrounded by its own membrane. So similar to the cell membrane, a nucleus has its own membrane that helps to control what can enter and leave the nucleus. If you go on to study biology at A level, you'll learn about that in more detail. But for now, for you guys, it's perfectly okay just to know that it does have its own membrane, funnily enough called the nuclear membrane. Right, we're going to move on to plant cells. Here is my picture of my plant cell. So remember, a plant cell has exactly all of the same structures as an animal cell, and they're going to do exactly the same job in an animal cell as in a plant. But there are a few additional ones in a plant cell that you guys need to be aware of. Now, in our animal cell, if I quickly flip it back, our outer edge was our cell membrane. But in a plant cell, your outer edge is going to be your cell wall, and then the cell membrane is the next edge down from that, the next layer down from that. And this cell wall is a rigid structure made of cellulose. Remember, the fact that it's made of cellulose is special to plant cells. Things like fungi will have a cell wall, but they're made of a different material. They've got chitin in them. So a cellulose cell wall is specific to plants, and it helps support the cell and its structure, and it sort of strengthens it. So this is why we tend to draw plant cells as a more rectangular, formal shape, because they've got this cell wall and keep that structure. Okay, so very outer edge would be cell wall. Next layer is going to be your cell membrane. You've got the ribosomes that do exactly the same, making proteins. You've got the nucleus, controlling the cell activities, containing the genetic material, the DNA. Mitochondria for respiration. Plant cells respire. Okay. Remember, photosynthesis helps them produce the glucose, but they still need to release the energy from that. Loads of students seem to be under the impression that plants don't respire or they only respire at night. Okay, not true. They're going to respire as well as doing photosynthesis. Remember, respire isn't breathing. Okay, so plant cells are going to contain mitochondria. They have got the same sort of ribosomes in order to help with that protein synthesis, as I said. And the cell membrane, helping control what enters and leaves the cell. Few extra details for a plant cell. First of all is this sort of structure in the middle. That is our vacuole, and that's just a large organelle that contains sap. So that sort of sugary type solution that you might have seen if you've cut open maybe a leaf or a plant. And it also helps with cellular support. We then have are chloroplasts. Okay, now chloroplasts are the name for the green structures. They contain chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is the green pigment. Okay, and chloroplasts are the site of photosynthesis. They contain that chlorophyll, as I said, and it helps, and that chlorophyll helps with sort of trapping the light needed for photosynthesis. Please do not get them confused. Chloroplast is the organelle. It contains chlorophyll to help with photosynthesis. All right, so your additional for a plant cell is a cell wall, a vacuole, and a chloroplast. Okay, now chloroplasts are not present in absolutely every single cell in a plant. Think about it. In order to make those chloroplasts in your new cells, it's going to take a lot of energy and a lot of effort. So think about, where is a plant not green? Have a little think now, give you 5 seconds. Where on a part of a plant is it not green? Hopefully you guys have come up with the idea that the roots are not, okay? Your roots are under the soil, under the earth. They are never ever going to see sunlight. So in a root, the cells are not going to contain chloroplasts, okay? It's never going to be used for photosynthesis. It's not going to bother. Things like the palisade cells, which are the top layers of a leaf, are going to contain lots of chloroplasts because they are exposed to a lot of sunshine. All right, so that was a quick run through of animal cells and plant cells. Hopefully you found this useful to help guide you in what you need for your 3D models. If you've got any questions, if there's anything you need further advice or further support on, please pop a question on the Schoology discussion board. But you guys should now be ready to go off and start making your models.